welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Inside Track. We've got a fantastic guest with us today, Michael Boyle from Mike Boyle's Strength and Conditioning. How are you today, Mike?
I am doing great. How are you guys?
Yeah, fantastic. And as always, my trusty sidekick, Glenda Rivoallan. How are you, Glenda?
Really excited, actually, because we're talking strength, and obviously in the new top 5 trends for this year in the fitness industry, strength is in the top 5.
I like it.
So it's going to be a really interesting conversation.
Absolutely. So probably the best thing to know, you come really highly recommended to us. So hence the reason you are the first on our series for the podcast, Michael. Obviously, Bobby and Richard said you've got to get Michael on. He really is the foremost expert strength and conditioning coach, and working with some amazing clubs and sports clubs out in the US. So probably the best place to start is to sort of go, well, who is Michael Boyle? So you obviously had an amazing career, but we some of our guests probably won't, or viewers won't really know that much about you from being in the UK. So do you want to give us a run through who Michael Boyle is, what you've done, and how you got to where you are now?
Oh, yeah. How much? You said we only have an hour, right? So I'll try to give you a Reader's Digest version. I've been doing this for 40 years. I'm 63 years old. This is my 42nd year. I started coaching at 21, right out of college. I spent about 30 years in the American university system at Boston University in Boston. And during that time, strength and conditioning was very much in its infancy. So I was able to have lots of overlapping jobs. I spent 10 years with the Boston Bruins in the NHL.
Wow.
Then 1997, I opened my own business and kept working at Boston University from 97 to 2012. Worked with our ice hockey program there. I've worked with our women's Olympic ice hockey program. I've worked with our women's Olympic soccer program. I spent 2 years with the Boston Red Sox and won a World Series with the Boston Red Sox. I've trained Olympic gold medalists in just about every sport that you can think of: gymnastics, judo.
Go on, drop a few names in, Mike.
Allie Raisman, who is a pretty good gymnast.
Wow, she's incredible.
Gymnastics. Taylor Harrison, who won the gold medal in judo in heavyweight division in I don't know 16. I forget. I can't keep my Olympic years straight, but so we've been able to do it in lots of different sports. I have now, my newest interest is women's lacrosse, actually. So we we are training the best women's lacrosse player in the world right now, Charlotte North, if anybody follows lacrosse. But it's been ice hockey has been the primary thing that I've really been deeply involved in. We won 2 national championships at Boston University during the time that I was there. And I've got tons of clients. Actually, my clients now, they're all grown up. I think we have something like 3 team presidents, 5 general managers in the NHL, a couple of head coaches. And these are guys that started with us when they were college kids. So
wow.
What an incredible CV, Michael. Michael, you know, we love to challenge our guests, so I'm going to get right in on this, because something I always ask people who have got your level of knowledge is, what is the toughest sport? And you're not allowed to wangle out of the answer. Come on, what's the toughest one?
Baseball by far.
Oh, what? Really?
And honestly, and I'm not a baseball person, but there is no more difficult sport to play than baseball in terms of, think of baseball, and if you get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you're in the All-Star game.
Wow.
Well, it's funny, Michael, I've just been in the States and I went to see the Sacramento team versus the Oakland team. And I was shocked at how many misses they've got.
How many what?
Misses, where they don't hit the ball.
Oh, yeah, misses. Yeah, absolutely. You got your accent, Glenda. I love it. But I may have to get a translator here at some point. But you're right. Like I said, 30%, you're in the All-Star game. And then in pitching, I think pitching is the most unique skill in all of sport in terms of the ability to get the ball into this incredibly small strike zone area, and to the ability of these guys to manipulate a baseball, to make it curve, to make it sink.
It's scary, actually. You watch some of the videos online, and the movement on a ball, considering it's a little bit smaller than a cricket ball, probably doesn't really relate to you, but it's not a huge ball. To make it do what they have doing to that ball is unbelievable.
It is amazing. I try to explain to somebody, I don't know if you guys have like milk crates, but if you can imagine, a milk crate, it's probably like 14 by 14 or something like that square. And I always say, if you can simply throw the ball into a milk crate from 60 feet, you're a minor league pitcher.
Oh gosh.
If you can't throw it into the crate at 90 miles an hour, you're a minor league pitcher. If you can't curve the ball and make it land in the crate, you're a minor league pitcher. The major league pitcher can tell you what corner of the crate it's going to go in. He can look at it and say top left, bottom right.
Wow.
I mean, it borders on idiot savant stuff, really, when you watch what these guys are able to do. So, Glenda, I have no problem answering that question, to be honest, and it really makes my hockey friends angry, but I do believe that is the case.
Well, you know something, Michael, I like you already, the fact that you will actually give me, Ryan, a straight answer. We love that. That is like confidence right there. I was rather hoping, though, that you would have said gymnastics when you mentioned Raisman, and that was what I did as a sport. And it's a tough sport.
Yes, I always say, you won't like my opinion on that either. I said gymnastics is organized child abuse. So it's...
Yeah, I can understand.
We might want to skirt that one then, Michael.
Yeah. But it's gymnastics and figure skating. It's tough. I mean, the physical demand. If you said what's more, the physical demand of gymnastics is actually, I mean, I don't know what the best word is, but it almost should be illegal in terms of what.
Do you think that's improved though, Michael, over the years? Do you think they've got better? But because of all the news that's come out and all the pressure that they've been putting on, or is it?
Way worse, because they've gotten worse and worse. What they're doing just gets more and more demanding. Again, otherworldly things that these people have to do, but you're not really supposed to be able to do them, and they're not good for you. The gravitational forces that these people are meeting on a regular basis are really. I always tell people with gymnastics, I say, get your kid involved in gymnastics when they're young, and then get them out when they're young.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's good advice, because it is good protection for the future, because you learn about good body weight management. And I don't see many very obese gymnasts later in life. I genuinely don't. They usually always still have good weight management, etc.
They've usually got dodgy joints, though, Glenda. That's the only problem with it. We met someone with horrendous arthritis, and she was adamant it was caused by the years of early training.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what I mean. But that body awareness that you develop, I think every kid should learn to tumble. Every kid should be able to roll and flip and cartwheel. But when you get into the advanced sort of competitive level gymnastics, it's a little bit of a kind of a Faustian bargain that you get into. You're dealing with the devil, because what you're going to be able to do those things is really coming at a high cost. We always talk about kind of the idea of orthopedic cost, and the orthopedic cost of that sport is very, very high.
Yeah.
And would you say that's the same in something like athletics and things like? I know obviously they're not twisting and turning in the same way, but they're pushing their body to same as cycling. I guess they push to such an extreme.
Yeah, I think American football is one where there's also a tough bargain in terms of the level of collision that you got to endure. But gymnastics, just the sort of distractive forces that are on your shoulders, and then the collision forces that are on your. You look at and what was it, Carrie Strug that broke her leg vaulting, and then continued to vault, which is insane. The fact that someone should have said, this is a child that broke her leg, all done. And instead someone encourages her to,
I know.
And it's, it's one of those iconic sport moments, but it's also one of the iconic abusive moments in sport at the same time, when you look and think somebody let this child run on a broken leg and do this last vault. And we see it with this great kind of patriotic feel to it and think that it's amazing. And then you look at it as a parent probably and think that's absolute insanity that somebody allowed that to happen. Someone should have just, wave the white flag, run it up the flagpole. We're done. Get this kid out. Get her to a hospital.
I think a really good place to start, Michael. Obviously, you're aware that Ryan and I focus in on the fitness industry, and you started with a huge amount of specialization with youth sport and younger sport. Do you think we do enough in the fitness industry to get the younger people involved in our industry to just maintain good body weight and be healthy for life? Do you think we're doing enough?
No, definitely, absolutely, positively not. I don't think we're doing anything close to enough in terms of, and again, we've probably got a little bit of a cultural difference with us being in the United States, but in the United States, gym class has become almost non-existent in terms of
Is that
kids.
right?
Yeah, it's a lot of schools are trying to get rid of it altogether. But even if they do, kids don't have to, you don't have to dress. You don't have to, they'll do, oh, you can do walking. We've watered it down to such a level that it's not great. And if you think of the fitness industry, the health club industry, a lot of clubs don't want kids in there. So they actually have rules that kids can't even be members.
And actually,
there's a big, I was going to say there's a big drive at the minute with a lot of clubs seeing an opportunity now because it's gone that way, like you're saying, Michael, that a lot of clubs are going adults only 18 and above. You're starting to see, especially the independents, start to come back and going, okay, well, let's look at that 16 to 18. Let's look at the 14 to 18 because there's an opportunity to make money.
Yeah, our largest growth area is middle school kids. So for us, grades basically 5, 6, 7, 6, 7, 8. So we start kids. We don't take them below 11 because I don't think that kids under 11, not that they shouldn't be strength training. I don't think it's bad for them, but I think there's a lot of other more fun things. I always say I don't want to be in the childhood stealing business. And I think it's really easy to get into the childhood stealing business in the organized sports or organized strength and conditioning business. And I'm kind of like, yeah, let's let kids be kids. And then
I think that's a really good message, isn't it? If you're going to, like Ryan says, if you are going to target younger children into the fitness industry, it's got to be based around play and fun, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Rather than it be too structured and formal. I think that's why we don't get much success with it, to be honest.
Thank you. And the good thing is, I always thought we had the most screwed up sport system in the world. And then I started talking to people about the academy soccer program in the UK, and I realized, wow, you guys got us. You've managed to screw it up way worse than we have in America in terms of we've got teams competing for kids at 7 or something like that to get them in their academy program. Which
pick them up and dump them. It's not a very nice environment. There was a couple of lads that worked for me when I worked for Marriott a few years ago that had gone all the way up to 16, so from like 6 all the way to 16. Been told their professional contracts there to sign. We just need to get it sorted. And next thing, they're turfed out the door, and they're lost, completely lost. Nothing. It took one of the lads. It took him 8 years to get his head right, to retrain, and then I think he's a quantity surveyor now. But it took him a long time to recover over the mental strain of being ditched by a top sport.
Yeah, it's interesting. We don't have that here, which is I'm very happy. When some of my friends at Arsenal were telling me that story, I thought, wow, I really thought we were the worst. But
I quite like American sports the way it works. Actually, we don't have that natural flow from school to college to professional sport, and obviously it has its challenges. But what we have is you sort of make your own way in a club or a private school or whatever it is, and you sort of either you get found in football. Football is probably an anomaly on its own, but every other sport, generally, you come through the clubs and you get found scouting and so on. It's usually a bit of a higgledy-piggledy way to the top. I mean, I don't know what it's like in gymnastics when you were doing it, Glenda, but it's not as structured as the US system. That is for sure.
The US is much more structured than that, and I think again it leads me nicely to pick your brains on this, Michael, but from your experience doing all of the strength and conditioning in those type of environments with high performance sports teams, and with your huge experience in the university structure, how do you assess the fitness industry and how we deal with strength and conditioning? And what would you say we've done well, but what would you say we need to work on? What would you say?
I guess if I'm going to say what we've done well, we've made it available to the masses. So that part of the fitness industry, we've done that well. I think what we've done poorly is there's way too much emphasis on steady state cardiovascular stuff, walking on a treadmill or sitting on a stationary bike, and way too much emphasis on machine-based bodybuilding type training. So when you think about real world stuff, it's not very real world. I think the fitness industry, unfortunately, and I had a conversation with a guy today, we were saying there's not a lot of money in health. And so not very many people are interested. There's lots of money.
It's still hard work though, right? I mean, we don't give people the actual outcome. We still have to get them to put into what we give hard work.
Right. And
it doesn't suit everybody.
But the health club industry really does. If you look at how the health club industry is, it's based on the idea that we would like to sell you a membership that you won't use. We would like to sell thousands of memberships to thousands of people and hope that a very small percentage of those people actually show up.
Yeah, you're right.
Whereas our business is based on the idea that we are going to sell a very small number of memberships to a very small number of people, and we're going to have those people very present, and we're going to improve the quality of those people's lives. So it's very, very backwards. And as I said, the only way to make money in the quote unquote health club field, in that fitness type field, is to sell a massive number of memberships at a lot of times, whatever discount prices and all kinds of crazy things.
Michael, you know what? It's music to my ears, because Ryan and I talk every single week about the biggest challenge our industry has, and they are not going to solve it, is we've sold too cheap. So none of the models work based on the pricing, because we cannot physically give a level of service at the type of monthly fees we're charging. It's just way too cheap.
Right. And if everybody actually showed up, you'd be ruined. Because everybody would be angry, and no one would be able to find equipment to use. And so there's a lot. I mean, I could go on forever about what's wrong with the fitness industry, but there's a lot of ego in the fitness industry. There's a lot of look at me. There's a lot of people that are in it because they like to do it themselves. I just did a talk on staffing a couple of weeks ago, and one of the things that I said is that you really want to hire people that want to help people. You don't want to hire people that like exercise. So when I'm looking for coaches, I almost, if someone lists working out as one of their hobbies, I almost look at that as a negative.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
We've said it for years, Michael, that the egos in our industry, unfortunately, I mean, there's some great people, obviously, but sometimes the ego lets it down. And one, it scares a lot of people off. It scares the normal person off if you've got a really strong alpha male type person in the club. Trying to go, this is what you do, I'm right, and you sort of go, that's not the way to encourage the general population to come and train at your club. They want fun, they want to enjoy themselves, they want to be relaxed. It's also, it's like an entertainment but health in the same way. They want to enjoy it like they would doing anything else. And it's I think that is one of the biggest challenges in our industry. But unfortunately, it attracts that type of person because of the nature of the business.
That's what we always talk about, trying to make sure that we can screen those people out from our hiring perspective, in terms of, I don't want, like you said, the alpha male type. I always talk about, don't hire big guy, little shirt. Do you know what I mean? If you're, that's not the guy that you want. And in the same way, I always say, don't hire ass selfie girl. Do you know what I mean? If you're, those aren't the people that you want. And you want to hire people who genuinely want to help other people improve the quality of their life. And that's not generally who's in fitness.
So in terms of the growth of brands like CrossFit, High Rocks, and the boutique clubs that tend to do a lot more specialization in strength and conditioning, how do you think they fare? What's your personal thoughts on that as a model? Just wondering.
Oh, you sure you want to? You sure you want?
Absolutely. Let's crank him up. I like
answers.
I'm not a CrossFit fan at all. I'm not really a fan of any of the high intensity, effort-based methods of exercise, because I think, again, they're failing. I think on that side of things, we're basically now we're churning and burning. We just hurt people. People come in, they get injured, they leave. They come in, they get injured, they leave. And you get a few survivors in CrossFit. You get sort of a post-college, young, relatively affluent demographic that probably played a sport and will survive the type of training at least for a longer period of time. But you're killing a lot of soccer moms and a lot of desk jockey dads, and like people like that are getting hurt. So, but the thing that I will give CrossFit their due, in the sense that they've brought community.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Which is a good thing. And, if you want to look at the idea, I always say, at least over here, Reebok used to run ads for CrossFit. And I said, Reebok is really running ads for my business, because they're running ads of young, fit people doing exercises perfectly. And
Yeah.
then you go sometimes, because I remember the first time when I heard about CrossFit, I thought, that doesn't sound so bad. And then I saw some videos and I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. You know what I mean? So you go from this idea of, oh, it's a pretty good idea, interval training, multi-joint strength training. It all sounds really, really good. And then you see it executed and you think, oh no, that's
it's
absolutely
still only going to promote right to the 20%ers again, isn't it?
Yeah.
And something that you said then, Michael, that I'm really fascinated about, and I'm not an expert in strength and conditioning like you, but when I did my first degree in sport, physical education, I did do a master's in sports science. I remember them talking about the famous strength guy, the American called Costo, who wrote the books, who was saying all about you could do one set, for example, and become so strong, and even in your 70s, right?
Yep.
So I love this idea, because that's what you're getting at when you say that it doesn't have to be crazy intense for long periods that's going to get you potentially injured, like what you've just described. So there's a real opportunity for strength and conditioning to work with the older adult, because that's what they need to gain, because it's what we lose. And I just think we've not done anything at that part of the market. What do you think is the huge opportunity there for the older adult to develop strength for functional living?
Yeah, that's been our biggest growing market up until the last couple of years, when suddenly we've seen the big increase in middle school market. But our biggest growth has been in probably the 40 to 70 age bracket, because what we've done is developed a system where we're strength training these people, and we're doing, total body exercise, free weights. So a lot of stuff the CrossFit person might look and think, yeah, I agree. But for us, no Olympic weightlifting, no back squat, no barbells on the back, just a really safe multi-joint. And I've become associated with the word functional, unfortunately, because I wrote a book called Functional Training for Sports, which, and I'll briefly tell you. So Human Kinetics Publishers, which is a big US publisher,
they're huge,
publishes a lot of fitness stuff, came to me and said, we want you to write a book on functional training.
This is amazing. I've probably read your book.
You probably have. Functional Training for Sports, and now it's New Functional Training for Sports. So there's 2 editions of it out there. The first one was 2005, but when I said to the guy, I said, I don't know what functional training is, so I'm the wrong guy to write the book. And his response was, no, we think what you're doing is functional training. And I said, so I can just write whatever I want, and you're going to slap a cover on it and call it Functional Training for Sports? And he was like, yep, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Nice.
And so
what's the difference between what you pushed in, Michael, and then in comparison to what everybody else would probably perceive as functional?
Well, I think what we started to perceive as functional training was a lot of the kind of standing on a Bosu ball, or standing on a stability ball, or, unstable, close one eye, stand on one leg. You look like you're probably have to practice to be a pirate or a workout. I don't know what you're actually trying to do. Whereas with us, when I started the book, I said function is purpose. So what we're trying to do is do purposeful training.
Function is purpose. That's brilliant, Michael.
And I always say, life is a game played on 2 feet, right? And in actuality, it's done consistently, transitioning from one foot to another.
Yeah.
So we just started talking about doing things standing up, doing things on one leg, things that what we thought was the definition of functional training. Mm-hmm. And then we started looking, we took it a step further, and we said, it's really the application of what we know about functional anatomy to training. So functional training is literally shortened. It is the application of functional anatomy to training. So we start looking at how the body works. We know the body works diagonally, right? We know if I'm going to shoot a layup with my right hand, I'm going to jump off my left foot. Yeah. We know all of these things, yet we do all of these foolish bilateral exercises where we're working with 2 arms and 2 legs at the same time, or we're using steel rods to support the load that move up and down. We started to say, well, we don't want the load to be supported. We don't want you to be on, 2 arms and 2 legs at the same time. We might want the load to be in one hand and you to be standing on the opposite foot. All these things that we started to tie in. We started to look at the core and say, the core, your trunk muscles aren't flexors. They're basically stabilizers. So we started to look at core training and say, wait a second, we eliminated all the flexion stuff. We stopped all the sit-ups and all the crunches, and
that's great.
Those types of things. So we just started to look at what we knew about anatomy at what we knew then about functional anatomy. What do the muscles actually really do? Because again, most of us, if you have, again, Glenda talked about having a physical education degree, we learned what I call dead person anatomy.
That's true.
Right? And dead person anatomy is what the muscles would do if you could get if you could pull strings on the dead body, then your quadricep would extend your knee, and your hamstring would flex.
That's so true. That's exactly what you get taught.
Right, exactly what you get taught. But when you really look at it, and I mean, I remember the first guy, a guy named Gary Gray in the U.S. in the 90s, and one of the things he said was, when you stand on one leg, all the muscles do the same thing. He said they all keep you from falling on the ground. They all resist. And I remember, he's right. That's exactly what they do. And then he said, when you step forward and you push, he said they all do the same thing again. They all create extension. He said, one muscle isn't extending one joint. Something isn't extending your hip. Something isn't extending your calf. Something, or your ankle. Something isn't extending your knee. Your anatomy is working as a global system to ambulate. Yeah. Keep you.
I know we focus on the fitness industry, but I do get slightly frustrated because I look at the care sector, and I always think that we're curing everything, we're never preventing anything, and it gets frustrating because that's my life mission, that we work on prevention rather than cure. In the care sector, miss a trick with older people, because if we build strength in people's legs, their core, their arms, their shoulders, they are going to live longer by the fact that they will not potentially have a fall that breaks a hip that then results in someone losing their life. I mean, I know I'm maybe being a bit arbitrary, but I feel like
I'm 100% with you. There's a 69% chance of dying within 5 years after you break your hip.
Yeah.
Is that right? Wow.
Like 69% of people who break their hip will be dead within 5 years.
Yeah, it's crazy. And it's because, Ryan, once they get into the care sector or other sectors, we physically try and fix problems. We don't prevent them in the main.
I think the thing is as well, even if it doesn't extend life, it extends quality of life. Right. So even if someone was still going to die at 80, they're going to die a more active 80 rather than sat in a chair waiting to die sort of 80. And that's the big difference.
It goes back to what I said about there's no money in health, because those are the people, they are the people that are fueling the hospital industrial complex. They're the people that are taking the drugs and getting the MRIs and having the spinal surgeries and having the joint replacements. Yeah. If you look at that, it seems very kind of Orwellian and very fatalistic, but I do not believe that the world wants us to take really good care of people, because if we do, what we're doing at Mike Boyle Strength and Conditioning is really bad for the economy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's true. That's fact. Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah.
And I guess as a question to you, Michael, hearing that is very true. But obviously our club owners that are out there are looking to improve their facilities and make some money, right? Mm-hmm. What would you say to them is the opportunity in strength and conditioning that we maybe need to think more about and tap into in our industry, the fitness industry?
What we would call adult functional training. So I would call it in this. I'll have all the CrossFit people up in arms in the UK, but people ask me that, people be like, "Well, you're kind of like CrossFit," and I'm like, "We're just like CrossFit, except not so stupid." So in a lot of ways, yeah, we want to get people on their feet and moving and standing and balancing and lifting free weights. Like, we want all that stuff. We want there to be, you look at, so I always, in my book that I just rewrote, one of the things that I did, the first part is on facility design. And I said, in the old days, we designed what I call the Noah's Ark weight room, which basically had two of everything. So you know what I mean? There were 2 curl machines and 2 tricep machines and 2 leg machines and 2 bench presses. And now when you look at sort of like our functional weight room, has a lot of the same things. So we've got Kaiser functional trainers, basically the functional training machines with the adjustable arms. And we've got dumbbells and we've got kettlebells and we've got adjustable benches. And we've got, so you look and think, the good thing is our way is much less expensive for the owner.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely an easier setup cost.
Yeah, it's much significantly lower. And then the idea, but for us, and this is the difference, we make everybody that comes in has to foam roll. Everybody has to static stretch. Everybody has to do a dynamic warm up. You can't be a member. We don't have members. You're in a group all the time, or you're with a trainer and you're being told what to do. And what we always talk about, the idea, we have a distinct recipe.
I like that.
And we distinguish between recipe and menu. I would say menu, when you go to the restaurant and you pick up the menu, you get to select what you want. When you go to your kitchen to make something, you have a recipe, and the recipe matters. The recipe, there's how many ingredients, what order are they going in? All that stuff matters. That's the way we look at our system. And so we always say to people, stick to the recipe and don't menu pick.
I want you to train me, Michael. This sounds super fascinating. I love
It does, doesn't it?
Got to come to Boston and visit.
You don't do any online training, no?
We actually do. We have online programs through Train Heroic. So we do have, like, you could go on Train Heroic and pull off an adult functional training program. And they're actually really good. They're all, the videos are great. We've got I've got this unreal staff of young kids who are actually in the process of kind of taking over from me, because I'm getting nearer the end of the line. I don't want to be, I'm 63. I want to work kind of when I want to work. I don't really want to kill myself these days.
Michael,
just on the digital stuff, Michael, we were, funnily enough, we were catching up just before you came on, because Glenda's got another talk to do with somebody else. We were talking about the sort of digital side of it being brought into the clubs. Do you see that happening, or do you sort of see this distinct difference between the two models that will probably never really come together and glue together as everyone's hoping?
Yeah, no, I would look at it and say it's probably bad for business, truthfully, if you have a brick and mortar location. But the better business is the digital business. If someone said to me, what business would I go into? I would say go into the digital online training business.
Yeah, the thing is, Michael, I say this to Ryan a lot. The problem is bricks and mortar with volume is difficult. So if you want to bring in some new populations at scale, even with lower engagement, that's what digital helps you to do. I definitely think bricks and mortar was never under the strain that people said it would be, because they were all, oh, the world's going to go digital. No, it's not. But people expect that as just an add-on value add that they expect, whether they use it or not.
Yes, I think that's absolutely true. I think the biggest thing that people, every time someone tells me that whatever, during the pandemic, oh, people aren't going to come back.
Yeah, that was
we're well over 100% of our previous best since. And the difference is people like community.
Yeah,
people want to be around other people. And that's what people. We had a 2-day seminar this weekend, and one of the guys that was there has his own facility and said he was talking about the idea of, I think sometimes my adult clients, they don't take it serious, and they're almost having too much fun. And I said, no, you can't have too much fun.
Yeah, that's so true.
Like, if that is your problem, if that's what you're trying to solve, then you're making a really drastic mistake. Because I know people that are having tremendous success with, what I would call silly fitness, dressing up in costumes. And
I love that, because fun has been something that was reserved for under the age of 18. Why should that be the case? The more fun we can have, the more youthful we feel.
It's not the easiest thing to gamify, though, is it? It's not the easiest thing to. No, as an industry, lifting weights isn't necessarily a naturally fun environment. If you're in a squat rack, it's a lot harder to do that.
The interaction can be fun, even if the activity isn't.
Well, do you know something, Michael? This might resonate, because I've just been in America, right? And I put a post on LinkedIn yesterday about this very thing, didn't I, Ryan? About Southwest Airlines. Because I was stunned at how much fun they've managed to put in the process when I'd had the flight. So there was pre-boarding jokes. There was people getting birthday celebrations. They were calling them out while they were waiting to board to say happy birthday. There was people joking with passengers by name on the tannoy. And then when we boarded the flight, it was a whole different experience. Even the safety briefing, they had a bit of humour in it. I was like, that is super cool. And I had heard all about them, that they do this as one of their values. And it was really nice to see it in real life, right?
Right. That's what we do. That's exactly how our business is. We probably play happy birthday at least once a week. I actually insist that my staff has some accessible version of happy birthday on their phone that they can Bluetooth into our speakers. So if it's Glenda's birthday, we're going to play happy birthday and we are going to embarrass Glenda. And Glenda, I always play this song a little too long, make it long enough so that it's uncomfortable. So Glenda's really thinking, when's it going to stop? But everybody loves that recognition, even when they say they don't.
Yeah.
They love the fact, like in our place, everybody's, oh, whose birthday is it? And they're really simple things.
It's like TGI Fridays back in the day. They used to get you stood up on your chair,
Exactly.
and the whole staff used to come around and sing happy birthday to you, and you'd be mortified. You'd be like, oh, do we have to go to TGI's? Yeah. But then when you're there, it does. It gives everybody that real buzz, that nice feeling that you're being recognized. I think everybody enjoys that.
We talk. You think? I don't know if Cheers was as popular a show.
Oh,
in the
yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so you want to go where everybody knows your name, right? If you think about Starbucks, the third place, all of those things, like that's all the stuff that we talk about all the time. We want to be everybody's third place. We want to be the place where everybody knows their name. We tell that's a huge emphasis for us with our staff is knowing people's name, interacting. You know, don't let somebody, if someone walks in, don't let them be there for a minute without someone saying,
"This is brilliant.
Can I help you? Well, you know, what do you need? What are you looking for?" Because we realize our environment's intimidating. You walk into our gym and you can't see a picture of our gym, but there's all these professional athlete jerseys lining the walls from end to end. You know, lots of Boston sports legends that have trained there. So the average person walking in their first reaction walking in might be like, oh my God, this definitely is not for me.
Yeah.
And
you know something that I did think was a bit radical because I've had the visit to the States the last 2 weeks. The service is miles better than the UK, right? However, you do the tip in the restaurants where you have to give 10, 15 or 20. And it's pretty much expected, right, that you do it. You don't say, no, I'm not giving a tip. You do it. And it's on everything. Starbucks, in a supermarket, it's everywhere, right? Yeah. But Ryan, I kid you not, maybe that's what we should do in the fitness industry in the UK, because the American people absolutely know that their salary depends on them greeting me with a smile, and it didn't feel fake at all. They're used to it now, that's the standard of expectation. I
think the difference is, though, Glenda, they reduce their salaries to make them have, whereas, can you imagine in the UK saying you're taking a pay cut because we're going to make you...
Well, I'm just being radical.
What you're literally doing is you're making it performance-based.
Yeah, absolutely. It works. It totally works. The service for the 2 weeks that I was there blew me away. But I want to pick up on something, Michael, you mentioned, because Ryan, I think this is fascinating. And Michael said this, maybe not thinking what I would think about this, but you mentioned, Michael, about people want to be told what to do, as in you're telling people a recipe, right? That might sound not too empowering. If you were in the well-being space, we tend to try and get people to be much more empowered to make change, because we know that when they are, it tends to last. But I have a bit of my own theory about fitness, that I think because it is hard work and because people are very sedentary by nature, whether we like it or not, that is exactly how people are these days. I actually think it does work. I know people my age just want you to tell them what to do and give me the least path of resistance, so that I don't really need to think about what to do. I just need to think about doing it well.
You know what we call you? The check the box client.
And I think there's loads of them, and I don't think we cater enough for them in the UK, Ryan.
We want that person. I want that person who wants to come in and check the box and say, I worked out today. And then what I want to do is make sure that the box is really, really good. So when they come in, and that's why we're going to tell them what to do, because we understand human nature, right? What human nature is, like you said, path of least resistance. Use those exact words. So if I look at someone, and if I said, I learned this in college, if I said we can do squats or leg press, bell curve. My top 10% are going to say, oh, squats, they're better for you.
Yeah.
My middle 60% are going to say leg press, it's easier.
Yeah.
The bottom 10% are going to be like, is there something else?
Yeah.
I mean, that 10%.
Can I not do it? Can I skip that? And
but that's why we do see higher retention and less attrition in the boutique clubs or the clubs like yours that go for better service, less volume. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, we know that you could be either end of the continuum, but I think the problem with the other end of the continuum and why we see such terrible attrition is because people come in and then they are completely not getting that motivation that a lot of people need to basically move.
Right. And then take it a step further. The people that are coming in only represent 10% of the population, at least in the US.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you. How do we up this penetration rate that hasn't moved in about 20 years?
Well, I think that's part of it is making it more personal and more personable. Because, Ryan talked about sort of the alpha male. Like one of the guys just did a great talk, and he had a picture kind of like 4 Jersey Shore guys walking down, with black tank tops on. And he said, would you send your daughter to go work out at the club that they ran? And of course, everybody's reaction is, I never would. I wouldn't let my daughter go in that place. Right.
Yeah.
But that's fitness. When you walk into the fitness place and, and the first person you see is big guy, little shirt, or ass selfie girl, you start looking, thinking, is this place really for me? Like, I always say to people, like, one of the things we talk to our interns about right when they come in is wear clothes that fit. So when someone walks in, they don't look at you and think, who is this buffoon in clothes 3 sizes too small for him?
I think the key is it's great to be aspirational. It's great to have that physique. It's great to look the part and know what. But I think the key is what you don't want to do is have that physique and have that look that scares then the person that you're trying to help. Exactly. That's not the idea. You're not supposed to intimidate them and say you need to be like me.
Yeah.
That person doesn't want to be like you. They probably don't have the time to be like you. They're coming in, they've got 45 minutes, you know what I mean? They're coming in, they need to they just want to be healthy. They don't want to be overweight, they want to be healthy, and they want to be able to live longer. What they don't want to do is have massive arms, massive legs, be a professional athlete. They just want to be fit and healthy. And I think, unfortunately, like you say, when you've got this tight t-shirt guy in there, that's scary for a lot of people, especially people who haven't trained much in their life. A lot of people entering our clubs don't have a sport background. I mean, I'm lucky. I grew up with sports all my life, same as Glenda, same as all of us. But there's a lot of people out there who never played sport. And so walking into an environment like ours and then going, they'll just naturally fit in. It's quite classic example. My son won't use the changing rooms at we go to a leisure centre, just a local council gym, and they've got the old school, open showers. Yeah. And it's just like, I'm not using them, point blank. And it's all because obviously I grew up with football teams and sports teams where that was the norm, and playing rugby, football, and so it doesn't bother my generation. But there's things like that you have to consider those sorts of things when people are joining our clubs.
Well, yeah, especially when you're thinking that 90% of the people aren't joining, you have to ask yourself why. Why aren't 90% of these people joining my club? And the number one reason probably is, one, because it's either big guy, little shirt, or salesman guy that you're confronting right when you get in there. So you're either going to be greeted by somebody who's intimidating that you look at, and like you said, you think, well, I don't want to look like that. That's not what I was coming here for. Or you're going to get stuck with a sales guy who's going to try to sign you up for the longest contract that he possibly can. There's no engaging. There's no drawing the person in, saying, hey, like we tell people all the time, come on in, try it out. We tell people all the time, everybody can have a free workout. I don't care. You want to come in for a day, work out. If you like it, you'll sign up. If you don't like it, you won't sign up.
I think the big challenge we've got, I think the challenge on this penetration is the fact that we are, all of our life is becoming instant gratification. And the only thing that you can't do that with is what we sell. And I think that's a challenge. Mm-hmm. And we've got to be able to deal with that context though. And this is why, and Ryan will laugh because he'll say, well, Glenda got to well-being. But this is why I think the industry needs to reposition itself as the people that will take on well-being, because I don't know what it's like in America, but our doctors don't want it. They don't do the social prescribing the way they could to try and get basic lifestyle habit change. Who does want it? Who is actually capable of it if we don't take it? And I think that we need a repositioning of well-being rather than just fitness.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. But it's also like you said, you have to, you know, if you're looking for instant gratification, then you have to get it when you walk in.
In some shape or form, yes, you're right.
Welcome. That's someone, instant gratification. Hey, I walked in that place and there was a nice person that I met who said hi to me and wasn't trying to sell me something and wasn't trying to intimidate me. That's, do you know what I mean? That's where we miss the mark right off the bat. And think about, literally, you're at the door and you've already screwed it up. Like this.
And how scary is it, Michael, that that's probably almost the easiest thing we can do in our industry, because you're not having to buy loads of new kit. It's not expensive. It's effectively having the right staff at the start. So like you were saying, you know, hire the right people, but then it's a matter of training them on what the journey is. So what are the expectations of the business? I can't imagine anyone steps through your door as a member of staff, Michael, and is just allowed to do their own thing on the floor. I can imagine you have a journey for all of them, like a 5-star restaurant. This is how you deliver the service, and I can imagine that's the way you guys approach it. Exactly,
and we approach it. I always say the customer is always right up until they're wrong. You know, at some point we might decide, you know, Ryan's a real ass and we can't accommodate Ryan. But
probably be about right.
It'll take us a while to do that. It really will. So we're going to operate from that standpoint of, hey, these people, you know, if you think like you go into any of, you know, sort of the Four Seasons kind of mentality, and you start looking at these people and saying, these people are guests. They're not customers. They're not numbers. They're not potential. You know, some people, you got to look at everybody as a potential sale. I would rather say, no, you got to look at everybody as a guest.
Yeah.
Everybody's coming to visit your place and decide whether or not they want to come back.
Michael, another thing I'm a bit passionate about is, and I know you see it a lot too in the States, is that we get these fanatical club owners who will go around the trade shows looking at pieces of equipment now that are over 20,000 for one piece of kit, but they're not spending a quarter of that on their staff's growth and development, right?
Yep.
And people are going to sell you more memberships, not just equipment, because if the people are terrible, your members don't even make it to the kit, like you said, right?
And if you think about this, I used to always say, most people back in the old Nautilus days, you could put a sign up in the window that said, we have Nautilus. And you could bring somebody in and say, show me the piece of Nautilus. They wouldn't be able to find it. They'd have to look around for the labels stuck on the thing. So the people don't know the equipment or how much it costs.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not relevant, but that's the same thing, right? That's ego. That's us. Oh, I want the latest. I want this. I want these rowing machines, or I want this, you know, super high priced bike, or I want these treadmills. And they all get sucked in at these stupid trade shows into buying things that they don't need.
I just wondered what your thoughts were. Now, obviously, there is a time and place for fantastic equipment. That is true. But I wondered what your thoughts were about what your suggestions are for developing people in the business and growing the talent.
So there's a really good book called First Break All the Rules. First Break All the Rules was written by a guy named Marcus Buckingham. And Buckingham did a study. I think they studied like 25,000 employees. And they asked them what made them like their job. Interestingly enough, I think money was 11th on the list.
Yeah.
But things that were really, really important were things like, do I have somebody at work that cares about me? Do I have a best friend at work? Do I have the tools that I need to do my job well? There were all of these lists of things. And that's what we try to do, is we want to make a work environment for someone who thinks, I get to come to work today and I get to do something that I'm good at. Somebody tells me that I'm good at it. I get feedback from somebody. Like with my employees, I make a point. One, I never say employee. I never say anybody works for me. Whenever I introduce anybody, I always say, Ryan and I work together. Glenda and I work together.
Yeah.
I never, because I was, when you say someone works for you, you're an asshole. Excuse my language. And I think it's the first time I've sworn today, but
no, you've done a couple, but we like it.
But it's that idea that, I'm more important. I'm the superior person in this relationship, and completely unnecessary, and minimizes the other people, makes the other person not feel valued.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's all of these things. So that's where we put all of our energy. I want our guys to think, Mike and the guys that are in charge like me, they're interested in me. They're trying to help me get better. They send me to continuing education courses. We buy books for our staff. We do, I always tell everybody, if it's under $1,000, ask for it.
Can we get to do that after the podcast?
But like from an equipment standpoint, if someone said, "Hey, we really need more of this,"
yeah,
I'm like, if it's under $1,000, I'll probably just get it. I won't think about it at all. If it's more than $1,000, I'm gonna have to think about, do we really need that? That becomes kind of a capital expenditure.
Yeah, absolutely.
A little more money. But as a general rule of thumb, if you think you don't have the things that are going to let you do your job really well, like we don't have enough of X, okay, let's get 10 more of X so that we have those things, so that everybody can feel like we're not, I'm not waiting for you to get done with it, or I'm not borrowing it from you. All that stuff makes a really big difference. I think everybody that runs a business should read First Break All the Rules and should look at that list and think, okay, what's really important? Because people will stay for less money. They absolutely will. If they're happy, if they're in a situation where they feel fulfilled, if they're in a situation where they feel like somebody cares about them, they'll stay a really long time.
So true. Yeah. Great advice. Great advice. You okay there, Ryan?
Yeah, sorry, kids are shouting next door, so they're all having fun in the back gardens. It's school holidays over here, so yeah, they're having fun in the back gardens. But I'm a massive believer in staffing. I worked for Marriott for a long time, and theirs was very much the belief that it was, you look after your staff, they look after the customers, and the business will just keep coming in. It's very, very much, and my whole career has always been about that, making sure you get the right staff, but you look after them when you've got them. I don't think your business can really fail if you've got everyone going in the right direction and everybody's trying to support it. I think it just works. So
I've got a final question, if that's okay, Michael. I just wondered, for the guys out there, what would be your top 3 pieces of advice for implementing strength and conditioning in your club in a way that is going to be successful? What's your top 3 bits of advice?
Top 3 bits of advice: hire some really good people. We call them CNPs, certified nice people.
Oh, I love that.
Get a bunch of CNPs. That's the first step. Have a system. Have
the recipe.
System, exactly. A recipe. It doesn't have to be my recipe, although I think it's the best one. But if I didn't,
we're going to have to read the new book.
The best one, I would change it, right? If I thought Ryan's was better than mine, then I'd use Ryan's.
Yeah, well, we'll have to test that theory with his new book, Ryan.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
And so hire the right people, have a good system, it'll be more than 3. Treat the people you hire well, and treat the people that come in well. Yeah. I always tell people, I could write a business book. The 5th thing would be charge a fair price. If you charge a fair price and you have a good product and you hire good people and you treat those people well and you treat the clients well, you will be successful. You can put all the other bullshit off to the side. I will guarantee 100% that your business will succeed.
That's
because
amazing.
It's so, I look at people all the time and think, I'm so glad that everybody else in our industry doesn't get it, because it's really good for us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's so true. But that comes across so strongly about your customer and employee centric approach to understanding them. So I think that's a real nugget. Really cool.
Absolutely. And one final question, Michael, because we always like to ask now. Clearly, you've worked with some amazing people. You've worked in some amazing jobs, and you're probably your own self inspiration, really. But who would you say, career wise, and going through, has probably been your biggest inspiration as you've gone through? It might be a couple of people you've had an amazing career, but would you say there's certain people or certain books that you've read that have gone, do you know what, they've got it right?
Book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Everybody should have to read Dale
I
Carnegie.
love that book.
Everybody. And the original, not the updated for the digital version, but the original 1920 whatever Dale Carnegie book. I think that was when I first started to get it. And I'll tell you this, I'll finish with this. It's a great story, but I got the book. I was going on vacation. We were going to Mexico, and I didn't have a book, and I was in the airport, and I literally saw this kind of old, tired title, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I looked, I said, how bad can it be, right? I'd need a book. I grabbed this book, take it with me on the plane. And so I'm sitting in Mexico, and I'm reading How to Win Friends and Influence People, and I'm thinking, this book is awesome. And twice the first day, people walked by me and just looked at me and said, that book changed my life. Two different people.
Wow.
Totally unsolicited.
Yeah, yeah.
And so then I started thinking, wait, I'm going to try to put this into action. One of the things they always talk about, things like smile, call people by their name. So I go to breakfast, and there's this very angry, unpleasant Mexican woman who's serving food at breakfast. And I go in and think, all right, I'm gonna do my Dale Carnegie shit on this lady, right? And I smile at her and I say, good morning. It's really nice to see you. And she's got a name tag on. I forget her name is, but I call her by her name. And she just kind of slops some food on my plate. And I'm kind of thinking like, okay, strike one. That didn't go all that great. And I go back the next day and I did the exact same thing. Good morning. How are you? It's nice to see you again. Called her by her name, smiled at her. And she cracks a smile and she smiles back at me. And I looked at my wife and I'm like, oh, this shit works. It only took me 2 days to break this. By the end of the week, she's saying hi to me. Like, she's like, I'm coming in and she's waving. Like, oh, my friend is here. My new American friend is coming to breakfast again.
I love that.
From that moment, I walked away thinking everybody needs to read this book because it's so like everybody like who reads it is like, it's too simple.
Yeah. But
and
simple
I think
works.
that's why so many people are failing.
Yeah.
Because they look at that and think, oh, it's too simple.
Yeah.
It's not too simple. It's
you ask my kids, Michael. My kids, I'll do that at the checkout at Tesco's and at the supermarket, and just generally have chit chats with people like that. Just trying to be nice. Obviously, help make their day a little bit more special because it's obviously not an exciting job. My kids would be like, "Oh, come on, Dad, let's just go." You know that, but it actually makes an experience for that person, and they've had a better day. You know what I mean? You're not getting anything out of it. It's just being a happy person.
You memorable. Yeah. And that's what people like. I with my kids, I tell all the time, things holding the door for somebody, saying please, saying thank you. And people, I'm very lucky. People will tell me all the time how nice my kids are and how polite my kids are and how well my kids can talk to adults. And I'm like, yeah, because I made them do it.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
From the get-go, it was like, I would make them go back in and say thank you. You didn't say thank you. Mm-hmm. Go hold the door. Go apologize because you didn't hold it. But I've embarrassed my son. I've said, go apologize to that woman because you let the door swing.
And Michael, I could listen to you all day. I think that I'm sure you've got numerous little phrases that I wish I could steal more of them. I think the highlight for me today that is going to stay with me, and I will quote you, is function as purpose. Love that.
Well, I appreciate it.
What's the other one?
Glad Bobby connected us, so that's great.
I know.
Absolutely. Now, just before you go, you don't have to answer this, but of all the sports teams you worked with, which one's your favourite?
Of all the sports, hockey is my favorite sport. I think of all the sports teams, I love our women's Olympic hockey players. I really do, because I think they are they're the epitome of sport in terms of they're not making any money. They're just grinding along, trying to play in the Olympics. Some of them are getting older, and yet they're still doing it. They're trying to hang on. They're trying to play in another Olympics. They're the ones that really make my day. Like, I love to go in and see them. I love to go in and work with them because I know there's nothing in it for them. They're not making a lot of money.
Amazing.
They're not getting rich. They're not getting famous. There's not a million people watching them on TV. So I love ice hockey players, and I love my women's ice hockey players probably more than regular ice hockey players.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
amazing. Ryan, I lied. I've got one last question. I ask every American person.
Go
And I
on.
have to ask Michael because of his expertise. Kobe or Jordan?
Oh, Jordan, absolutely. Don't even get me started because I would say bad thing. I will because that would really get me in trouble. But I think there is a massive difference between those two individuals. I think both were flawed people, but I'll take gambling as a flaw over some other flaws. So
Yeah, I will say though to you that I think you're absolutely right for what it's worth. I did ask a few other people while I was away, and Jordan was the biggest vote for sure. So thank you for your time, Michael.
Larry Bird over both. So.
Oh,
No.
really?
There we go.
Can jump.
Boston Celtics, come on.
Yeah, I know. He was very, very good though. And I used to love those duels, like when he was around and Jordan and all that time.
Go watch on YouTube. Go look up Larry Bird last second shots, and you will just be like, oh my God. Who could have who's hit more big shots in the course of his career?
I will say to you before we end this, I went to the Sacramento Kings, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Or is that yeah, that's the Sacramento Kings is the basketball, right?
Yep.
I went there as well, and it was a big game. It was 110 to about 102. And I just still get blown away by the standard of accuracy. It's bonkers.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, those guys are just incredible athletes. I think
Honestly,
I always said if you put the likes of Jordan in the long jump, he'd be clearing the pit. The distance and the height that those boys can jump. It's a couple of the American footballers they reckon would give Usain Bolt a fair crack. They reckon they're that quick. They're just in the wrong sport, but probably earning a lot more as well. So
if they spent their time, that was all they were worried about. Absolutely, instead of running.
Absolutely. But I think what we'll leave it there, Michael, because I think we could probably chat with you for hours. I think and take up the rest of your day. But really appreciate your time coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We'll definitely get you back on because I think there's far more to explore. I'm definitely picking up your book and going to have a read of that. So, but for us. For now, thank you ever so much for jumping on, and we will, I'm sure, catch you soon.
Thank you. That was a really quick hour. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. You were.